In this video, you are going to learn English through a true and unforgettable story. Today's story is about Hachikō, a dog whose extraordinary loyalty touched millions of people around the world. As you listen, you will not only improve your English but also discover why Hachikō became a symbol of faithfulness, love, and hope. If you enjoy learning English through true stories, please support the channel. You can like this video, subscribe, and if you would like to help even more, you can support me on Ko-fi. The link is in the description below. Now, let's begin the story. More than 100 years ago, in a quiet farming region of northern Japan, a small puppy was born on a cold November day. No one could have imagined that this little dog would one day become one of the most famous animals in history. The puppy belonged to the Akita breed, a strong and intelligent dog that had lived in Japan for centuries. Akitas were originally bred to hunt large animals such as bears and wild boars. They were known for their courage, loyalty, and calm personality. Because of these qualities, Akitas were highly respected throughout Japan. The puppy was born on November 10, 1923, on a farm in Akita Prefecture. At first, he was simply one puppy among many. His days were peaceful. He slept beside his mother, played with his brothers and sisters, and slowly grew stronger. Like every young puppy, he was curious about everything around him. He chased insects, explored the fields, and followed every new sound that caught his attention. Several months later, a man living hundreds of kilometers away was looking for a dog. His name was Professor Hachikō Ueno. Professor Ueno was one of Japan's leading agricultural scientists. He taught at the Imperial University of Tokyo and was respected by both his students and colleagues. Although he spent much of his time studying and teaching, he loved animals and had always wanted an Akita. When he heard about the puppies born on the farm in Akita Prefecture, he asked for one to be brought to Tokyo. The journey was long. The small puppy traveled by train across the Japanese countryside before finally arriving in the busy capital city. It was a completely different world from the quiet farm where he had been born. Tokyo was full of people, horse carts, early automobiles, bicycles, and noisy train stations. When Professor Ueno first saw the little puppy, he immediately smiled. The puppy was healthy, energetic, and curious. The professor gently picked him up and decided to call him Hachikō. The name Hachi means 8 in Japanese. The number 8 is traditionally considered a symbol of good fortune and prosperity. The ending ko was added as a sign of affection and respect. From the very beginning, Professor Ueno treated Hachikō as a member of the family. Unlike many people at that time, who kept dogs mainly to guard their homes, the professor believed that dogs could become true companions. He spoke kindly to Hachikō, played with him every day, and took him on long walks through the quiet streets of Tokyo. As the months passed, Hachikō grew into a beautiful Akita. He became large and powerful, with thick golden brown fur, pointed ears, and intelligent dark eyes. People who met him often stopped to admire him. However, what made Hachikō truly special was not his appearance. It was his character. He was gentle, patient, and incredibly devoted to his owner. Every morning, Professor Ueno prepared for work. He put on his suit, collected his books and papers, and left his house for Shibuya Station, where he caught the train to the university. Before long, Hachikō developed a routine of his own. Without anyone teaching him, he began walking beside the professor every morning. Together, they made the same journey through the neighborhood, passing small shops, friendly neighbors, and busy streets until they reached Shibuya Station. At the entrance to the station, Professor Ueno would stop for a moment. He would smile at Hachikō, gently pat his head, and then disappear into the crowd of passengers. Hachikō never tried to follow him onto the train. Instead, he quietly turned around and walked back home. But every afternoon, at almost exactly the same time, Hachikō returned to the station. He patiently waited near the entrance, watching every passenger who stepped off the train. And every afternoon, Professor Ueno appeared. The moment Hachikō saw him, his tail began to wag with excitement. The professor smiled, greeted his faithful friend, and together they walked home. Day after day. Week after week. Month after month. It became their special tradition. Soon, station workers, shopkeepers, and regular passengers began to recognize the unusual pair. They smiled whenever they saw the loyal dog waiting so patiently for his owner. No one knew that this simple daily routine would soon become one of the most famous stories in the world. One morning in May 1925, everything seemed perfectly normal. The sun was shining over Tokyo, and the streets were already busy with people going to work. Shopkeepers were opening their stores, children were walking to school, and trains were arriving and leaving Shibuya Station every few minutes. Professor Ueno got ready as he always did. Hachiko watched him quietly from the doorway. As soon as the professor picked up his hat and briefcase, Hachiko stood up, wagged his tail, and followed him outside. They walked together through the familiar streets. Nothing felt unusual. When they reached Shibuya Station, Professor Ueno bent down and gently stroked Hachiko's head. "I'll see you this afternoon," he seemed to say with his warm smile. Then he boarded the train. Hachiko watched until it disappeared into the distance. As always, he turned around and walked back home. Neither of them knew that this would be the last time they would ever see each other. That morning, Professor Ueno arrived at the Imperial University of Tokyo and began teaching his classes. While he was speaking to his students, something unexpected happened. He suddenly collapsed. The professor had suffered a cerebral hemorrhage, also known as a stroke. Doctors tried to save him, but there was nothing they could do. At the age of 53, Professor Hachikō Ueno passed away. He never returned to Shibuya Station. That afternoon, Hachiko arrived at the station exactly as he always did. The trains came and went. Hundreds of passengers stepped onto the platform. Office workers hurried home. Students laughed with their friends. Families reunited after a long day. Hachiko carefully watched every face. He was looking for only one person. But Professor Ueno never appeared. As evening approached, the station became quieter. The crowd slowly disappeared. One by one, the station employees closed their offices. Still, Hachiko waited. Finally, after dark, someone gently encouraged him to go home. Perhaps the professor would return tomorrow. Hachiko believed exactly that. The next morning, he walked to the station again. He waited. The following afternoon, he returned once more. He waited again. Days became weeks. Weeks became months. Yet Hachiko never gave up. Every single day, shortly before the professor's train would normally arrive, Hachiko walked to Shibuya Station. He stood in the same place. He watched every train. He looked at every passenger. Every afternoon, he hoped that his best friend would finally come home. After Professor Ueno's death, family members and friends tried to take care of Hachiko. Several different people looked after him. Some lived far away from Shibuya. Others believed it would be better if the dog forgot about the station. But Hachiko had no intention of forgetting. Again and again, he escaped. No matter where he was taken, he somehow found his way back to Shibuya Station. The journey was often long. Sometimes he walked for hours through unfamiliar streets. Yet he never seemed to lose his sense of direction. His destination was always the same. The place where he had last seen his owner. At first, most people paid little attention to the lonely dog. Some passengers simply walked past him. Others thought he belonged to someone nearby. A few station workers recognized him as Professor Ueno's dog and occasionally gave him a little food or fresh water. But many people did not understand why he came every afternoon. To them, he was simply another dog waiting outside the station. Only those who had known Professor Ueno realized the heartbreaking truth. Hachikō was not waiting for a train. He was waiting for a promise to be fulfilled. He believed that one day, his beloved owner would return. And because of that hope, he kept coming back. Every day. No matter if it was raining. No matter if the summer sun was burning. No matter if snow covered the streets of Tokyo. Hachikō was always there. Waiting. By the end of the first year, the station workers had begun to admire him. They noticed that he never missed a day. His routine was almost as accurate as the railway timetable. At nearly the same hour every afternoon, Hachikō appeared. He quietly took his place near the station entrance. He sat down. He watched. He waited. Some employees started bringing him bowls of water. Local shopkeepers sometimes offered him pieces of bread or fish. Children would stop to pet him on their way home from school. Little by little, the lonely dog became part of daily life at Shibuya Station. People still did not realize that they were witnessing the beginning of one of the most famous stories of loyalty in history. Years passed. Still, Hachikō returned to Shibuya Station every single day. His fur slowly became rougher, and he was no longer the young dog who had happily walked beside Professor Ueno. Yet nothing could change his routine. Every afternoon, he arrived at the station before the train was due. Every afternoon, he waited. Every afternoon, he left alone. People began to notice something extraordinary. This was not a dog waiting for a few days. This was a dog who had been waiting for years. Some commuters started bringing him food. A butcher gave him pieces of meat. A fish seller offered him leftovers at the end of the day. Station workers made sure he always had clean water. Many people who passed through Shibuya every day came to know Hachikō by name. He was no longer just a stray dog. He had become part of the station itself. In 1932, everything changed. One of Professor Ueno's former students learned that Hachikō was still faithfully waiting outside Shibuya Station. He was deeply moved. He decided that people should know this remarkable story. So he wrote an article for one of Japan's largest newspapers. The article described the loyal Akita who had continued to wait for his owner every day, even though the professor had died many years earlier. When the newspaper was published, readers across Japan were touched. Many could hardly believe the story. Could a dog really remain so loyal? Could an animal continue waiting for someone who would never return? The answer stood quietly outside Shibuya Station every afternoon. His name was Hachikō. The article spread quickly. Soon, newspapers across the country began writing about him. Magazines published his photograph. People talked about him in cafes, schools, and homes. Parents told the story to their children. Teachers used Hachikō as an example of loyalty and devotion. Before long, people traveled from all over Japan just to see him. Some came by train from distant cities. Others brought their children because they wanted them to meet the famous dog. Many visitors took photographs. Some gently patted his head. Others simply stood nearby, watching him wait in silence. They knew they were witnessing something special. Although Hachikō became famous, his daily life never changed. He did not understand newspaper articles. He did not know that people admired him. He did not care about fame. Every afternoon, his eyes searched the crowd. Every train that arrived gave him a little hope. Perhaps this time. Perhaps today. Perhaps his best friend would finally come home. But every evening, the station became quiet again. The passengers disappeared. The lights slowly came on. And Hachikō walked away alone. Only to return the next day. People often wondered why Hachikō never gave up. No one could ask him. No one could know exactly what he was thinking. But many believed that, in his heart, he had made a promise. As long as he could walk. As long as he could see the trains, he would keep waiting. That simple act inspired thousands of people. Japan was changing rapidly. Cities were growing. Technology was advancing. Life was becoming faster. Yet every day, one faithful dog reminded everyone that love and loyalty never go out of fashion. In 1934, the people of Tokyo decided to honor Hachikō. They raised money to build a bronze statue of him outside Shibuya Station. When the day of the unveiling arrived, a large crowd gathered. Newspapers covered the event. Photographers stood ready. Children climbed onto their parents' shoulders to get a better view. And then something wonderful happened. Hachikō himself attended the ceremony. The famous dog calmly sat beside his own statue while hundreds of people applauded. It was an unforgettable moment. Very few animals in history have ever witnessed the unveiling of a monument built in their honor. Hachikō was one of them. From that day on, the statue became a symbol of loyalty, friendship, and unconditional love. But Hachikō did not understand that people had built it for him. When the ceremony ended and the crowds went home, he returned to his usual place. Waiting. Watching. Hoping. Because, for Hachikō, there was still only one person who truly mattered. Professor Ueno. Years continued to pass. Hachikō was no longer a young dog. His steps became slower. His face turned gray. He found it more difficult to walk to the station, but he never stopped trying. Every afternoon, he made the familiar journey. People who saw him understood that he was growing old. Many worried about his health. They knew he could not live forever. Yet Hachikō seemed to have only one purpose. He was still waiting for Professor Ueno. On March 8, 1935, station employees noticed that Hachikō had not moved from his usual place. When they came closer, they realized that the faithful dog had passed away. He was 11 years old. For nearly 10 years after Professor Ueno's death, Hachikō had returned to Shibuya Station almost every single day. His story came to an end in the very place where he had spent so much of his life waiting. The news spread quickly across Japan. Newspapers reported his death on their front pages. Many people were deeply saddened. Some cried. Others visited Shibuya Station to leave flowers beside his statue. They felt they had lost a friend, even if they had never met him personally. Professor Ueno and Hachikō had been separated for almost a decade. Now, in the hearts of many people, they were finally together again. Hachikō's body was carefully preserved. Today, it can be seen at the National Museum of Nature and Science in Tokyo. His fur reminds visitors that he was not a legend or a fictional character. He was a real dog whose loyalty became part of history. Professor Ueno's ashes rest in Aoyama Cemetery in Tokyo. Beside his grave stands a monument dedicated to Hachikō. After so many years apart, the loyal dog was symbolically reunited with the man he had loved so deeply. During the Second World War, Japan needed metal for weapons and military equipment. Many bronze statues throughout the country were melted down. Sadly, Hachikō's original statue was one of them. But people never forgot him. After the war ended, a new statue was created. In 1948, it was placed once again outside Shibuya Station. It is the statue that millions of people visit today. For many Japanese people, it is one of the country's most famous meeting places. Friends often say, "Let's meet at Hachikō." Thousands of people walk past the statue every day. Many stop to take photographs. Some know the full story. Others become curious and decide to learn about the faithful dog who waited for his owner for nearly 10 years. Hachikō's story has traveled far beyond Japan. Books have been written about him. Children learn about him in schools. His life has inspired several films, including the 2009 movie Hachi, A Dog's Tale, starring Richard Gere. The film introduced Hachikō to millions of people around the world. Although some details were changed for the movie, the heart of the story remained the same. It was a story about unconditional love. Why does Hachikō's story still touch us today? Perhaps it is because loyalty has no language. Whether we live in Japan, Europe, America, or anywhere else in the world, we all understand what it means to miss someone we love. Hachikō never expected a reward. He never became tired of waiting. He simply returned to the station because, in his heart, that was where he believed he belonged. His loyalty was not based on hope of receiving something. It was based on love. And that is what makes his story unforgettable. Today, when people visit Shibuya Station, they often stop in front of Hachikō's statue. Some smile. Some take photographs. Some quietly remember someone they have loved and lost. The statue is more than a tourist attraction. It is a reminder that kindness, friendship, and loyalty can leave a mark that lasts much longer than a lifetime. More than 100 years after Hachikō was born, his story continues to inspire people of all ages. It reminds us that true friendship is not measured by time. It is measured by devotion. And sometimes, the greatest lessons about love do not come from people. They come from a faithful dog waiting patiently at a train station. If you enjoyed learning English through this story, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps me create more stories like this for you. And if you would like to support my work, you can buy me a coffee on Ko-fi. You can find the link in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next story.